As you can see in the previous video of the Florida Everglades despite its beauty, it's in a crisis. This presentation will focus on the current environmental changes happening in the Florida Everglades. The Florida Everglades is a subtropical wetland, in fact, the largest in the United States, that covers more than 7,800 square miles of southern Florida. With this, the region consists of 1.5 million acres of marshes and forests, as well as a plethora of renowned species of wildlife. Not only so, Florida has even benefited from the ecosystem's natural heritage. In the 1960s, the issue of pollution of the Everglades water started, which still raises concerns today. Current threats that emerge are in relation to the decrease in water flow and phosphorus contamination. Consequently, this affects the quality of the environment and the life that surrounds it. Therefore, the region has developed major concerns due to those natural resources lost not being able to restore themselves. Questions that will be addressed in this presentation are the following. How has the land been beneficial to individuals in the region? How has the runoff water containing phosphorus affected the landscape of the Everglades? And what has been done to try to remedy the polluted water of the Everglades?
Historically, the Everglades has been a region of potential farmland and communities. Around 1000 BCE, the indigenous civilization, Calusa Indians, were predominant in this region where they were considered as a highly organized society. As mentioned, traces from their civilization were left that included large-scale architectural shellworks, shell tools, carved wood, and long-distance canoe trails. But as of the 1700s, their population started to decline due to incoming disease brought by the Spanish arrivals such as smallpox and measles. Initially, early colonial settlers viewed the Everglades as a worthless swamp where an initiative was brought upon people were to drain the land. The region was then put into use where colonists took part in land reclamation. As a result, they attempted to dig canals for drainage but failed due to the disabilities of the environment. At the end of the 19th century, there were three small communities depicted in the article: Chokoloskee, Cape Sable, and Flamingo, where they all had commerce and traded their resources with areas such as the Key West, Fort Myers, and Tampa. With the suitable climate and water nature of the region's people traded goods such as cane syrup, fish, and vegetables.
As previously mentioned, in the mid-1800s, the efforts in managing the region's surface water emerged due to the region's substantial soil and climate. Revealed in Chimney and Goforth's article, there has been historical impacts that arose from the efforts in establishing this land for agricultural purposes. An aerial comparison of both the historic and present in the region can be referred to by Figure 1 on page 2 of the Chimney and Goforth article. In the more recent time, the progression of new operations soon were created in the region, such as restoration and protection efforts. With this, management objectives have resulted to shift over time to combat arising environmental changes. It was mentioned that the Central and Southern Florida project have primarily been operated for regional flood protection during the wet season, as well as supplying water for farm irrigation and domestic use during the dry season, according to page 2 on the Chimney and Goforth article. As for of the past 50 years, their top priority for the district is now preservation and protection due to changes in nutrient sources for the ecosystem, according to page 2 on the Chimney and Goforth article as well. The Everglades currently suffers from excess phosphorus levels, where a plethora of public work projects are determined to remedy the situation. Hence, they are prompted in developing plans to reduce the nutrient loads substantially and efficiently from the region.
In present circumstances, there are numerous threats that the Everglades face. The Everglades is classified to have a normally low nutrient ecosystem where an overgrowth of plant and algae species will cause the region to have an excess in nutrients called eutrophication. With the outbreak of toxic green algae, it causes the excess of fresh water leading to salinity spike. The Everglades also faces threats such as rising sea levels, light and noise pollution, fire suppression, and roads and visitor traffic. In addition, if the region goes through a dry season, freshwater will be reduced. As a result, this will affect the transport and nutrients and salt levels of the Everglades. With these occurrences, they can cause harm to habitats in the region that may be beyond repair, such as long-term cause of salinity spikes. As you can see displayed on the screen, the Everglades is home to a plethora of wildlife. But efforts had to be made when its wildlife was not protected, but the agricultural industry was thriving. The alligators, deer, bobcats, and panthers are facing a far more relentless foe, rising seas. This may result in a decrease in population of the Florida Everglades wildlife, which could lead to a crash in the ecosystem. Although rising sea levels is a concern, decreasing water depths have been the primary issue, as stated by using scenario planning to evaluate the impacts of climate culture on wildlife populations and communities in the Florida Everglades, says.
In addition, the Everglades is in close proximity of a growing community. Because of the growing community, there is a need for clean water at an unprecedented rate, according to the Lake Okeechobee Watershed Project. With this said, water shortages have created an issue for the human population. Consequently, many environmental programs have been made, such as the $7.8 billion Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan that was created in 2000. According to the Clark article, it was stated that there is a current need for clean and feasible water for developing areas with rising populations. With the $7.8 billion restoration plan, its goal and priority is to aid the problem in water surge while preserving and sustaining the natural resources, as well as to maintain and protect the local environment.
On the other hand, an issue that also emerges is the fact that South Florida is prone to flooding. This led Congress to introduce the Central and Southern Florida Project for Flood Control and Other Purposes in 1948, where its general purpose was to control flooding along the Kissimmee River and Lake Okeechobee. Even with these plans, the region still suffers from recurrent flooding. Subsequently, it led to a new plan in building complex systems such as canals and reservoirs to control the excess water. Although new ideas were made to encompass the environment's issues, they also created additional drawbacks to the existing Everglades region. These changes caused populations of birds to shrink and unfortunately cut off drinking water supply to about 30 million people. Overall, the water pollution of phosphorus and the increasing level of salt seems to be a continuous issue for populations where Florida's government have been trying to actively fix it.
We are stewards of the land, and if we don't take care of this land, the land won't take care of us, said Wedgeworth. One of the remedies is to laser level the fields to minimize runoff water. By minimizing runoff water, the risk of toxic or harmful chemicals being transported by runoffs is greatly reduced. Another technique is lowering the fertilizer for each plant instead of spraying hazardously. Drip fertilization system can also be installed to reduce the amount of fertilizer being ran away by runoff and gravity.
Ultimately, over the past few decades, the Florida Everglades have gone through drastic geographical changes. Through research efforts, it was seen that the growing levels of phosphorus have created the domino effect on how the ecosystem is impacted. The quality of wildlife is decreasing in size, the drinking water supply is decreasing, and the topography of the Everglades is continuously changing. It is fortunate that the people have been able to innovate new ways to combat the water crisis, such as laser leveling and drip fertilizer systems. Elected officials are also actively trying to combat the water crisis as new Everglades restoration projects are proposed. In order to preserve the physical and historical geography of the Florida Everglades, it is important that efforts are continuously made.